Welcome to the Dad Show. Dad Sports Life. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Dadger. Joining me today is former Wisconsin Badger Kyle Zuliger, a guy who did it the hard way, earned everything he got, and embodies what it means to be built the Wisconsin way. Kyle, thank you for coming on, taking the time to come to the Dadger. I know how busy of a guy you are. It took us a couple tries. Yeah.
No, this is like 6 months in the making. I feel
Yeah.
like when you first started, you contacted me, and then I was talking to you for months on end because that was busy season with my business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy we could finally connect.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. So, uh, born and raised in Appleton?
Yeah, born and raised. Left town for a little bit, played some ball, went to school. Now I'm back.
Yeah, can you tell us about a little bit about your upbringing in Northeast Wisconsin here?
Yeah, it was pretty standard upbringing, I guess. I had my siblings, and we were pretty active growing up. Um, I always tell this story, and it's, in a nutshell, nobody was my age growing up in the neighborhood. So I was rolling with my big brother, who's 6 years older than me, and then my sister, who's 5 years. So, you know, it was fun. We played ball a lot, and playing up to, with kids older than me was probably an advantage that led to, all of my athletic achievements, downstream, which was, in hindsight, I'm happy with it. But at the time, I was getting pounded in the backyard or in the driveway, but I like to say it worked out for the best.
So the two older siblings?
Yeah, two older siblings. Yeah.
Okay. So like going through high school, did you, or I guess even growing up, did you feel like, I guess were they both athletic?
Uh, yeah, my sister, she was more on the academic side. She graduated high school a whole year early. Um, and she was more along the lines of just, being involved in a lot of stuff. And then my brother, he played D2 football for a year in
Okay.
Michigan. So he and I were probably a little bit more on the athletic side, so to speak. Not that my sister wasn't, but we were involved in all the games, all the ball sports, and that kind of thing. So whatever
Did
the
you
season was, we were always playing that
did
sport.
did you feel more competitive with him then, or look up to him more in sports?
Uh, yeah, I would say it was a mix of both. The age discrepancy probably was something, at least, as a youngster, I didn't understand why I couldn't compete with them, even though it was as simple as, I'm smaller than them, but, I keep
Right.
the mom and she keeps sending me back out. No, I always looked up to my brother, and my sister, and, following in their footsteps was, I got to reap the rewards of that because they blazed a trail, so to speak. And then, just playing in the backyard and playing in the driveway, that cultivated a lot of competitiveness. And then when I did get to play with, people my age early on, and then, I was more competitive, it seemed, and I didn't know any different. I was just trying to
Yeah.
get my butt kicked by my brother and his friends. So
Yeah.
it helped when I finally started playing organized sports with people my age. And, for
Yeah.
me, it was survival. But, when you start playing with, 8, 9, 10 year olds in Pop Warner for the first time, all those years of backyard football certainly helped. And then that's when I started to discover I really like sports, particularly football. And, and then, we just started taking the next steps to keep pursuing that.
Yeah. Was football the first sport that you got into organized? And what you said that was like 8?
Yeah, just Pop Warner. I think the first organized sports would, tough to say, probably soccer
Sure.
and basketball, way early on. And then, but we played everything. I mean, soccer, baseball, basketball, everything. We used to flood our backyard. We'd play hockey in the backyard. My uncle played hockey, so we'd always roll with them too. So we just played everything, and I think just being active and wanting to play with everyone was as simple as that.
So we'll get into it a little bit later, the fatherhood aspect now.
Sure.
But are you trying to do that with your kids as well? Kind of just get them in everything and get a feel for what they like, what they don't like.
Yes and no. I think a lot of youth sports is a little bit. It's not like when I was growing up or when we were growing up. I feel like when we were growing up, basketball would be for like 6 or 8 weeks and it'd be done. Then it'd be
Yeah,
baseball for 6 or 8 weeks and it'd be done. You'd have a summer, the fall sport, couple weeks, and then it's done. And at early and earlier ages now, it seems like they're longer, they're more demanding, they're more organized. And, with my daughter and, my son's 8 months. So, but with my daughter, we just kind of, we follow her lead and what her interests are, and then we feed that. So,
yeah. So was there something that drew you to football right away, like even at Pop Warner that you can remember?
um, I just I liked the competitiveness of it. And then, initially I didn't care for football necessarily. Initially, I think it was probably basketball or soccer that I liked.
Okay.
I always had a little bit of speed, and that served in soccer. And then
Yeah.
basketball, we just played in the driveway constantly. So, um, but football wasn't necessarily a first love until I actually remember the play. My dad was my coach in Pop Warner, and I hurt my hand. I got pinched it between my helmet and somebody else on a tackle, and he wouldn't take me out. And not in a bad way. It's just like, the next play is going to start.
Yeah.
You got to
Right.
on this. That angered me so much. And, it was a run play. I was a running back. Um, so all that anger in that play, and I was able to have a pretty aggressive drive. And I'm like, oh, this is how you play football, be the hammer, not the nail.
Yeah.
And playing with that aggressiveness and that violence was new to me. I loved it. And then from that series on, I love football for that reason.
So you said your dad was your coach in Pop Warner. Did he kind of do the typical dad thing where he kind of followed you up to a certain point, or was it just Pop Warner?
I think, yeah, he worked a lot, so I think he filled in more than anything and helped out. That's like any dad with organized sports at a
Yeah.
young level. It's, everyone's chipping in and helping out. But by the time I was in middle school, it was, whatever teacher was a coach at that time. And, in high school, we had our coaches as well. But
So fast forwarding to high school, you played football, competed in powerlifting, and ran track. So I feel like most most of the time you expect powerlifting to go with like throwers for track. Was
yes.
was was there a particular coach or mentor who encouraged you to kind of diversify your training like that?
For me, it was just I wanted to become bigger, faster, stronger. At that point, I really enjoyed football, and simultaneously, I didn't care for the year-round aspect of what basketball was becoming. My high school was a pretty big basketball school at that time, and so for me, I just thoroughly enjoyed training, and I saw the benefits of training both in football and in track.
Yeah,
So for me, it was, I loved how linear that was, put in this effort, get this output, and
yeah.
then seeing that translate on the track as well as on the football field was really encouraging. And that kind of feedback was something that I thrived on. And it was fun to just continue to put effort into that and, having that positive feedback loop.
So according to your page on the UW website, you set the conference record and your school record in the 100 as a junior. So first things first, do those records still stand
Uh,
at Appleton East?
I don't know. I don't I'd have to walk in the gym. I know they got the track records on the I've been so disconnected with my high school though since walking out of there. Honestly, I hope they're broken by now because those are probably going on nearly 20 years. I mean,
Yeah.
funny to say that, but records are meant to be broken, and I absolutely hope that somebody has shattered that record. Like I ran
Well,
like a
and the 100 is a pretty common event.
time, so it's sure if they knows
The
if it stands.
the 100 is a pretty common event. 20 years, you would think somebody would break that.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess I don't know if I still do, but I had the record for 300-meter hurdles, but like nobody wants to do those. So
that
that
is
one
a
at that that one at
horribly
that one at 20 years, I was like, maybe.
300 hurdles. Did you do 400 as well?
No, I did the hurdles, I did the 4x1, I did long jump, I did high jump.
Okay, so you're probably pretty. You must be what, like 6'2", 6'3"?
6'4".
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I did like the 4x4 sometimes just when we needed points.
Yeah,
But
right.
I hated the 300, but I really hated the 400.
Those are those are such abysmal efforts, man. They suck. They're horrible.
Yes. So other than the 100, were you just a sprinter in high school? Like 200,
Yeah,
100?
kinda like you with the 4x4, primarily the 100, those relays, 200 as well, those relays, and then I'd chip in on, like, long jump, triple jump,
Yeah.
but like when we needed the points, I would do the jumps, but between, running a prelim, then doing the final heat,
Yeah.
I was doing almost 20 events, if we had 2 track meets that week.
Yeah.
And I think both seasons I ended up like pulling a hip flexor. I never went to state because I was hurt. So whenever I got a fast time, I guess that works.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess on the subject, you touched a little bit about it. I feel like a lot of athletes I've interviewed, majority of them say that, that have done track. Track was kind of an auxiliary sport for them to help, whether it be speed training, weight training, endurance. What I assume that was the case for you. That's kind of what you alluded to earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to run track for the speed training. For me, I ran football or ran football, played football, led to powerlifting. Powerlifting was, around October to, I don't know, March or so when nationals would be. And then after that, track indoor season is starting. So I just needed to change up the training and what I was doing, and track was perfect for that. And it was fun. You know what I mean? It's fun to run track at this point.
Was powerlifting something you had just gotten into in high school, or were you doing it were you doing it prior to high school?
I was doing that pretty young because my brother was doing that
Okay.
and I would tag along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being as young as I was when he started, where else am I going to go after school? So I'd, go with him. And I wasn't necessarily training at such a young age, but I was there.
Yeah.
And by the time I want to say sixth or seventh grade, I started training legitimately. And again, it was, that positive feedback loop of, I'm seeing gains, I'm seeing my body change, I'm seeing this translate to the field. And all of that's very encouraging and exciting. And so I just continued to do it. And we had, as my family friend, my dad's buddy that he worked with, and he trained us, to this day we train together still.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you were good at it. You got second at state, and then first that same year at nationals, and then fourth the year after that. Is that, I guess, for powerlifting? Is it similar to like wrestling, where it's similar weight classes? Like you have to be in a certain weight class, and then you
Yeah,
compete with a weight
different weight
class.
classifications than wrestling, but it's the same concept,
Yeah, yeah,
brackets of weight classes. And I always competed between 165 and 181. And um, it seemed to have worked out for us. So I was very pleased with my results. And then everybody that I trained with, everybody went to state, went to nationals. And so being in the same environment, and having that reinforcement, we all held each other accountable, and we're all competitive in our own ways because we're all different weight classes anyways. So being a part of that for all of 4 years in high school was very positive, I would say.
Was that something that you did through the high school, or was that a club that you had to go through for that?
It was not through the high school. I actually brought that club, to the high school, and then,
Okay.
we built that sport out eventually because powerlifting, I feel like it started to really get popular, in Wisconsin in, like, the late '90s, early 2000s. I don't know, maybe earlier than that, but, East never had a team, so when I started doing it, you know, I was just going as Kyle Zuliger from Appleton East. Well, Nina's got like 100 people, just me. But, eventually we had a few other guys, join our club, and, we ended up being pretty competitive.
Post playing in college, did you ever think about going back to powerlifting at all, or didn't ever cross your mind?
Yeah, I've always retained the training philosophy, and I never, got around to doing another meet, although I have that, in my sights for in the future. Um, but at the moment, with all my obligations right now, you get it being a dad, between your work, your kids, your family, your marriage.
Yeah,
There's only so few hours for outside commitments, not that you gotta put your own self-interest on the back burner because it is
yeah,
good to train, but, um, I gotta make it more important so that I can actually compete in a meet, which, that's in the cards for the future because I do want our kids to see us competing.
yeah. And, I totally get it because I went into this year with, like, the mindset, like, "Alright, I'm gonna start training for a triathlon, Ironman, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
Kid co you know, it was just like, you don't realize how how much time and energy it takes to be, like, a good parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Because,
especially
like,
especially
you know
with
what
you're gonna do an Ironman, I mean, that's hours. It's hours upon hours
Yeah.
of training, and
Yeah, I had actually had Thompson helping me out a little bit with it, but yeah,
nice.
dude, it was when he's younger, it would have been easier because they sleep so much where it's like, okay, I can sneak off for an hour here, I can sneak off for an hour there.
Right.
Now I'm work home, dad
Yeah.
duty in bed.
Right, and as much as you wanna, push them in the stroller or bike and haul them behind you, it's like, once they get hungry, are you gonna start
Right.
crackers over your back or,
Right.
it's tough that way, and,
Yeah.
we just built out a home gym for that reason because making time to go to the gym and come back, it's just easier to be accountable to it if it's in the garage, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, luckily now I eat my lunch at my desk while I work, and then I work out on my lunch, so
Perfect, yeah, right.
Right.
Alright.
Uh, but so to go back, do you think powerlifting, and having, probably very good technique from the powerlifting helped you right away with workouts when you got to college?
Certainly. Yeah, I think that was my competitive edge because when I got to Wisconsin, I feel like the weight room and the training wasn't intimidating whatsoever. I was very physically prepared from the training that I got from powerlifting, both, explosiveness with the sprints and the running and the leaping, as well as just like the weight room lifting. So I felt very confident there. And, fortunately, we had a class we had strong guys. I think Borland, he came in and he was benching 400 pounds. And, we had Travis Frederick, who he was squatting in the 600s as a,
Yeah,
but we had really, really strong guys. Ryan Groy, another one, just, a 500-pound squatter right out of the box. So these guys were, yeah, Easter. You didn't beat him. I competed against him at state. And same thing. I mean, guys were all strong right out of the box, ready, Big Ten ready players, and
yeah.
it was cool to come and have that as a class. Not that the guys with us weren't that, because they were developed, man, but it was just really interesting 'cause that 2000 class was special in that way.
So, aside from technique, what we were talking about, like working out and lifting, and I'm sure powerlifting more so, it's a lot of breaking through mental barriers, like especially when you're trying to push weight.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, do you think that helped with some of the changes you experienced going from high school to college? That mental toughness?
Yeah, because, the adversity you encounter, the the difficulties, even the setbacks you encounter just with training in general, obviously that translates to everything else. So, I mean, when I got to Wisconsin, having just, a baseline of, call it, mental resiliency helped, and that was crafted through, sports in general, but also just the mental aspect of being able to get under 500 pounds as, 16, 17, 18-year-old. You can't just walk into that lackadaisical. It takes a mental fortitude to be prepared for it and then
Yeah.
tackle it, especially in meets. There's times where, you're 500 pounds of water, but, you might have to put 30 plus pounds on if you want to stay competitive and win that meet. And that circumstance came up multiple times in meets, and sometimes you sink, sometimes you swim, but being able to go through those motions was very, very, beneficial for me, and that translated.
Was there, or I guess, well, let's go to football because we.
Yeah.
So you played both ways in high school, running back and safety. Did you have a preference one side of the ball than the other in high school?
No. I enjoyed both sides of the ball. They brought something different, um, and I just love, in general, I love football, so being able to play 48 minutes in high school and being on different phases of the game and all what those phases of the game bring. It was fun to me, and being able to change that up through 4 quarters, that was tough, it was challenging, and, mentally kept me stimulated. The challenge of being able to just get through the game and what takes a beat. So it was fun.
It might not be accurate, but according to your ESPN recruiting page, so your recruiting schools list was Boston College, Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. When did, I guess, when did schools start reaching out to you, or did you have to kind of put your tape out there for schools to see you?
Yeah. Um, End of sophomore year, I was playing varsity and I had a decent year. And um, at that point, I had made the choice that this is something I want to pursue. And I think after my sophomore season, I got into some of the local combines. I think the Midwest Combine, I don't know what it was called at the time, but I think it was the Midwest Combine. It's, is a local version of a Nike camp.
Yeah.
And going there and putting up some numbers helped, as well as going to the camps locally. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, Northern Illinois,
Hmm.
just hitting those summer camps and getting on the radar in that regard really helped. And then, there wasn't Huddle, there wasn't Twitter, so you had to be a self-starter a little bit if you didn't have a high school that, you know, right, wrong, and different, East didn't really have an established program. And
Yeah.
um, that wasn't a bad thing per se. It's just I had to be proactive about getting my tape out there, get my name out there, and trying to show, like I'm a Big Ten caliber talent that can compete. And that's what those 1 day and 3 day camps were, as well as going to those combines and posting legitimate, electronic numbers that can be verified.
Yeah. So what was the process like deciding where to play for you? And was there anyone who helped you kind of navigate that?
For me, it was really as simple as going to these schools and trying to be competitive and seeing what kind of interest they're giving back to me. Cause a lot of people would send us, tickets to home games, come to these home games and we'll see how you're doing and that kind of thing. And, um, when I went to Wisconsin, there was always just something different about Madison. Something, I don't know, felt like there was electricity in the air. And my mom would say that because, we went to all the schools, all the North Dakota schools, we went to Minnesota, the Illinois schools. And anytime I was in Madison, she, she would say, there's something different about you being in Madison. And, obviously, if you grow up in the state watching, especially the Alvarez teams and those
Yeah.
Rose, it's just different. And I think a lot of the Wisconsin guys um, know what that feeling is. And, when Bielema started to give interest back to me, um, as well as Coach Bosted, who was the local recruiter at the time,
Yep.
that was validation that, I got a chance if I put in the work. They're showing this reciprocative interest back. So eventually, after the camp going into my senior year, Bostad basically said, we're very interested in you and we want you to come here." And that pretty much sealed the deal.
Was there any school had a pitch outside of Wisconsin that maybe you thought second, like, oh, maybe I could go there?
Illinois, Northern Illinois, they recruited the area pretty heavily, and we had guys locally that went to Northern Illinois. Um, and I thought, I liked DeKalb and I liked what I saw when I went there, but I mean, it's just hard to compete with walking into that stadium and what they have to offer versus walking into UW and what they have to offer. So once I was receiving that positive interest from Madison, that was a no-brainer. So
Maybe a stupid question, but what was Wisconsin's pitch to you? Was it to come in to try to be running back, or did they want you to come in and be like a athlete? Because they had John Clay already established there,
yeah,
and I think Monty Ball was also going to be Monty Ball was in your freshman class, correct?
yeah, he and I came in together. They'd recruited me on defense,
Oh,
so
okay, okay,
they recruited me as a corner slash like nickel safety. And that was exclusively what they wanted me to do, particularly that camp. They were putting me up against, wide receivers and, I was being physical enough with them and they liked that. I talked to Coach Dorn at the time. He was the DC. So, came in and my whole freshman year, I was a corner safety. They're kind of figuring out where my body weight was going to go and then where they wanted to put me. And then freshman spring ball, we had all these injuries and surgeries going on in the running backs group. And Bielema called me in one day, and I see you more as a forward, and he said he wanted to move me to running back for that reason. You know, you grow up in Wisconsin, watching these Wisconsin teams, and we all know what's running back you, and
yeah,
it was hard to say no to that. So I obviously we had 5 years there where that was the best running back room in the country.
yeah.
And that's kind of where things shifted for me, going from playing running back to finding my niche through special teams and finding my playing time.
Yeah, I mean, not only the best running back room in the league, but there was like so much depth. Not saying that you weren't good at running back,
I
but it
mean,
was so
I didn't
heavy lately.
I
Like,
mean, from 2009 to 2013, we get 3 Heisman finalists, we get
yeah,
3 Walker Award winners. And then the guys who didn't, like James White was in the group and he
right,
won the Walker Award, but he
right,
still has what, like 3 Super Bowl rings. And,
yeah,
it's fun thinking about it because um, that room was so unbelievably talented just between, like you said, John Clay on the front end, Monty coming in with me, James
yep,
behind us, Melvin behind James,
yep.
Corey behind Sorry, names keep going. The room has multiple Super Bowl rings now, and we got a lot of hardware amongst everybody in that room.
Yeah.
You know, this weekend, I think Monty's getting inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. So
Yeah, I saw that.
for me, it was so obvious, and being in that room, there was so many things that I took both from these running backs as well as from Coach Hammock, who cultivated a lot of these running backs, and Coach Settle. But gosh, I mean, talk about just an unbelievable room. Even our fullbacks, for crying out loud, Brady,
Yeah.
Ewing,
Yeah.
you
So
couldn't have possibly put more talent in that room.
right. So
So
if we could go back a little bit here. So the transition from high school to college, we talked a little bit about, in the training side. What was it like for you off the field? Were there any difficulties for you off the field? Because, you talked to some of these guys with, towards the end of college, they like how regimented it was, but initially it was tough for them to get used to that kind of schedule.
yeah, yeah. For me, I've always thrived in structure. So going from my high school schedule was, you got school all day, you have a sport after school, then you have your studies. And for me, I always was accountable to a sport training or whatever my goal was. So the way I always describe it to people is, from 2009 to 2013, if you were to pick a day and a time on the map, I could tell you down to the minute and down to the square foot where I was. Structured, very structured. But for me, I like that. I thrived in that because it's just, all right, this is what we're doing. This is the program. Now it's just about putting effort in. And again, that linear progression to getting towards a goal. And at Wisconsin, you know, particularly at that time, we had a DNA. This is what we do. This is the expectation. And we win because of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of very competitive teams prior to me getting there in 2009. And then, then we got into those Big Ten championship teams. So, the structure, the transition from high school to college, it was a thing, of course, but I was able to adapt, pretty easily to it, I would say.
Since you are so structured, I'm gonna kind of jump ahead here, but we'll come back to football. But uh, I had a tough time when Maverick was born because I'm this like I had a schedule, worked out at this time, woke up at 5 a.m., worked out, got that done,
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's chaos when you have a kid. So how
Yeah.
did that transition go for you? Because I really struggle. I'm not even joking. I really struggle with it.
Yes. Yes. Particularly the case of a newborn, those first, and I would even say, especially those first 90 days, but the first 12 months, um, you don't got structure anymore,
Right,
man. It is
right.
survival.
Yeah.
But no, and it's not the priority at that point.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to do the things, around the house and manage your marriage and all these things. But it's such a precious time that's so fleeting that if you're gonna miss a workout, who cares? Because it's it's not gonna be forever. And for me, I'm blessed to have a very, very, very supportive wife, and she does a lot. So she's been a blessing in that regard, and very fortunate that she takes it upon herself to really take on all those responsibilities. And because of that, I'm able to do what I can do for our family, which has been awesome. So, um, but honestly, at first, my son, we're just barely getting him to start sleeping through the night now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you on the chin and you forward like anything.
Well, and you get them to start sleeping through the night, and then they start teething, and then they got the sleep regression. It's like,
Yeah.
all
It's too
right, sweet.
that back.
Right, right, exactly. So we'll dive into all that a little bit later. But if I could bring it back to college here. So
Yeah.
uh your freshman year, they redshirted you. Was it tough having gone from played both ways in high school to redshirting your freshman year?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, it was part of the deal. It with Wisconsin at that time, we were so talented that it made sense, you know what I mean? And a lot of the philosophy at Wisconsin at that time was next man up. So, Bielema had done such a great job of getting talent that had such depth that we had guys um, that would get drafted that didn't even play. Like Bill Nagy's a great example of this. He was like the sixth lineman that got drafted by the Cowboys, and we would just make packages up so that he could get on the field because we didn't have a place to put him.
Right.
Talented guys, and that was all over. It was all position groups. So in terms of redshirting, it made sense.
Did you have anyone, like any tenured player that really kind of took you under their wing that first year?
Yeah, there was a lot of guys. The ones that stand out the most are Chris Maragos and Brady Ewing. Brady was
Okay.
pretty in age to me, whereas Maragos was he was, graduating soon. And they're just, one, they're Wisconsin guys. They grew up watching Wisconsin, had that dream of going and playing. They're walk-ons, they're in scholarships. So um those guys were really, really good, great faith-based type people, and they all say the same thing, and this is the program, buy into the program, be accountable, work hard. My gosh, if you can't do that and not have success, then something's going on.
So your second year there, you start to see the field more on special teams. Did you have to do anything? Like, I guess, how did you get into that role?
Yeah.
Was it, I mean, was it from doing a scout team in practice or?
Yeah, so the idea at the time, I mean, again, depth at every position. So when you're a younger guy, the way they want to get you playing time is getting you in on special teams and getting those reps, get your feet wet, so to speak. And I guess I attribute a lot of the success there to playing multiple sports growing up, as well as playing multiple or both ways in high school, because special teams is kind of you know, there's so many different positions and you have to play each position differently because it is special teams. You have that 40 to 50-yard sprint every play. So it's hard to understand how to play, you know, kick returner versus being an up back versus being a frontline guy.
Yeah.
It's hard to, figure out punt returns versus being one of the guys blocking. So a lot of different skill sets within each phase of those games. And I guess I was able to learn quick, um, and then play aggressively and play fast. And that was seen, fortunately, that just led to a larger role. And then that role continues to expand. And as that role continues to expand, you get more reps and you get better.
Once you saw the field, was there any part of you that maybe thought about switching positions to see the field more, or were you happy just being out there contributing any way they needed you?
Yeah, it was, obviously I wanted to play a primary position a little bit more, but between receiving, uh, getting some kick returns in there, I was still getting 30 to 35 reps a game. And I don't know. I mean, I go into the Sunday meetings and I'm sitting next to Monty who just got 30 snaps, and I'm sitting next to Melvin and it's not his turn yet. We got none, and I have 30 snaps as well. So in that regard, I was, you know, thoroughly satisfied with my playing time. And then you just look at the room, the running back room has depth. You look at the wide receiver room, even you got Toon, you got Aberdaris, you got all these guys, and and we're winning. So
Right. Right.
I figured this is my role, and when you win and you have good chemistry on the team, there's no need to continue to rock the boat in that regard. And for me, I had a lot of fun playing special teams just because of how fast it was, how violent it was, getting my hands on the ball. So, I created this niche role, and once I became that ace guy, it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun.
So your junior year is when they swapped you to safety, correct?
Senior year.
Senior year, okay.
Yeah.
So was that were you happy to switch at that point, or were you kind of bummed to go to the defensive side of it, or it was kind of a nice switch of pace for you?
Not really, because at the time, that's when the Anderson regime came in.
Yep,
The safeties coach was Bill Bush, and Coach Bush and I really hit it off. He was a lot of fun, a lot of character and stuff. So learning from him was a lot of fun, and just it was another new thing to tackle. I didn't have a large course load in my senior year, um, and because of that, I was able to absorb more of the game.
sure.
It was a lot of fun just having that challenge again, because every year it was either a new offense or something like that, and then now it was a whole different position, a whole different side of the ball. So I
Yeah.
had fun with it, and it was a lot of new faces with the new regime. So having all this new stuff at once was really exciting to me.
Yeah, so you made the best of that situation. Do you think for that senior class, it was more difficult with Bielema leaving kind of the way he did?
Yeah, I think you can't hit a guy for wanting more. Um,
No, 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 yeah, no,
eh,
for sure.
we always really loved Bielema, and
I
when he
still like
left,
Bielema.
but when he left, it was what it was. And when Anderson came in, for us, it was again, whenever there's something new, it's exciting because you don't know what to expect. And um, we were so trained in our ways that there was still carryover, even though Bielema had left. So the attention to detail and the accountability to one another, just doing your job, that was so ingrained in us, and it carried over. And and then you sprinkle in some new talent like Dave Aranda, who's the DC.
Yep.
It was pretty awesome. Now we had such a tough it's a year, and then you safety for it. It was a lot of fun. So I mean, time with that trans.
So we talked about the depth that you guys had at running back through your tenure at Wisconsin. I don't know if you've watched any episodes, but I've been doing a segment called "Start, Sit, and Redshirt" with
Okay.
guys you played with
Oh,
over over your tenure. So we're
mm,
gonna do running backs. So
let's
you
do
got Monty Ball, James White, and John Clay.
oh my god. Start, sit, and red shirt.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, that is an impossible question. Who start? I think I'm gonna start Monty. Um, who am I gonna sit? That is such an impossible question.
If
I
it
hate
makes you feel any better, I had Bronson Koenig on and I gave him Sam, uh, Frank, and Nigel.
yeah, like, what do you no, I think you start Monty. I came in with Monty. James, no disrespect, man. I gotta sit you, man. Maybe that's more of a seniority based sit. And then John, I'm gonna red shirt. Um, but gosh, I mean, you're talking about talent. Oh,
Legends. Yeah.
that's an impossible question. Yeah.
uh, okay. So, did you, over your tenure at Wisconsin, do you have a favorite game that you remember playing in at Camp Randall?
Oh man, that's a tough one. You know, the Ohio State game when they're number one, then we knocked them off is probably a favorite, but I'm gonna put an asterisk next to that one. I got a concussion. I really don't remember the game, but I played the game. Um,
Yeah.
just don't remember much of it. There was there were more games. One game in particular that wasn't at Camp Randall, so I'm gonna bend your question a little bit, but it was at Michigan and playing in the big house. That's a thing. It's 100 and I don't know, 15,000, but we took the crowd out of the game. And I still remember at one point in the second half, I think we ran the ball 30 straight times. And that was so typical and cliche of what Wisconsin football is.
Yeah.
And I love that we did that because that was Coach Christ. Um, he's not following the sheet at this point. He's seen we are bludgeoning this team,
Yeah.
going to continue doing it by running the ball. And I love that. I love putting that on film. I love being that brand of football. And, that was so fun to watch and film the next day. But gosh, there's so many games. There's, even the games you tee off on a team where you put 70 or 80 points on them. So many guys now, or teams rather, they'll come out with flashy uniforms or, they'll talk all this sauce in the media. And it's like, we don't have to do that. We're going to put 70 on you and
Right.
and we know you know it, and we're just
Yeah.
gonna, you know
So to put a bow on the college chapter here, so what did the end of your playing career look like? And was it a tough transition for you having gone from playing the last, 2 decades of your life, a decade and a half of your life, to not really playing anymore?
yeah. Um, it was a change, but at the same time, the punishment that my body had absorbed at that point, even if I had taken a shot at the league, I was ready to move forward just because, you know, when I left Wisconsin, uh, one of the trainers, I had got some x-rays that year just with some injuries I was going through. And basically he's like, you got arthritis of somebody in their 40s at this point. So
Oof.
yeah, and that's part of the game. Would I change it? 100%. I would never change that. The memories and the experiences I had. But for me, it was bittersweet, I would say, because I'm giving up something I love. But at the same time, the punishment finally coming to an end, and that
Yeah.
was refreshing, I would say. And now I can redefine myself into something else.
Yeah. So post post your playing career, did you go right to CH after your college?
Did, yeah. So after college, I got a job right away with CH Robinson, and then that's how I met Otto.
Yep.
Uh, we interviewed Otto earlier, and that was great. It was the same type of thing. I was in sales. It was competitive. It's something different, something to learn. Um, and after that, I had switched. I had always wanted to do firefighting, and that was something that, it's a family profession, so to speak. Aunt and uncle are firefighters, and it was just something that I always knew I was going to do. And after a couple of years with CH, I knew that it was that time to make that switch. It was now or never type of thing. And so then I made that switch, and I'm really happy I did.
Yeah. So uh, if I remember correctly, you had to uh, you had to go through you were volunteer for a little bit there, right?
Yeah, so I went to school, and as you're going to school for it, you you work with, a local fire department. So volunteered as I was getting that education, and then eventually that led to employment locally. So I work with Appleton Fire Department now.
I mean, I assume it's very similar, but how does the teamwork and trust in a firehouse compare to what you experienced in the locker room at Wisconsin?
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of commonalities, I would say. Obviously, there's a lot of you got to trust the guy next to you to do his job. And, you can't win football games if somebody next to you isn't going to do their job, their responsibility. Well, it's no different when you go into a house fire. There's an unspoken understanding that this is the job that we got to do to knock down this fire. And there's a lot of trust in that when, visibility and all this stuff is at 0%. So, those commonalities are there, being physically prepared is there, and just being able to be accountable to your craft, and then how that translates into everything.
You know, I'm sure that they train you to try to kind of maybe minimize this a little bit. But when you first started, was it? I mean, it had to have been scary. Like, and
Yeah,
how did you figure out how to like control the fear and use it, for
yeah,
yourself?
yeah. I mean, to an extent, you have to just take that leap, I would say. I can still remember, for example, my first college football rep. You can't be prepared for that. I mean, you've played football all your life, but I still remember my heart beating out of my chest. In the same way, that first house fire I've ever gone through, my heart was beating out of my chest. But, I still remember in the rig going to that call, I'm like, I've felt this before. I've been here in this position before. And then after that, you just fall back on your training, no different than you fall back on the practice that you did that week for, for that game plan, for example. So, eventually, you know, it's always exciting, but at the end of the day, it's something you've seen before. Be professional about it with how you approach it.
Does your daughter like realize like you're a real life superhero? Like, you know what I mean? Like running into burning buildings, saving people.
I wouldn't phrase it that way, but no, I think she has fun with it, just with coming to the firehouse, seeing the fire truck, that type of thing. And um, I think she has an idea of it, but, I kind of shield them at age appropriate levels of, bad things happen. We don't want bad things to happen, but inevitably, when they do, they ought to happen when I'm working because this is what I'm trained at. And that's where I want to be so I can use my skills. God forbid something happens, it ought to happen when I'm working. That's kind of how I approach my work and also how I explain it to them at a more of an age appropriate level.
Right, right, right. Are there have there been? I assume there have, but have there been moments in your firefighting career where the training and the discipline has really helped you in some aspects of your job?
Yeah, I would say composure. You know, you lose your composure in anything, you're not going to get much accomplished. And, at a young age, I had to maintain composure through, competition, which is such a great avenue to hone that craft. Because ultimately, you win or lose a game. It matters. You want to win, but it doesn't matter. But, in firefighting, you win or lose at, say, a difficult call. Well, sometimes people's lives are on the line, and that's real. That actually matters. And being able to have composure in, very uncertain situations is something that's valuable to have. And fortunately, I work with guys that are tremendous at what they do. I mean, tremendous, excellent professionals at the craft of firefighting, and being able to rely on them, lean into them, or them lean into us, and it's having that teamwork uh, is awesome. Then being around that pulls your skills up. So I'm very fortunate in that regard, and that's been something that we all.
Yeah, so we'll do it for both here. How do your leadership and communication skills from football help you now, either on your business side, where we'll dive into that here, but also for firefighting?
I would say, my experience with leadership is phenomenal. Not mine, but I'm saying who I saw. Um, Being around, Bielema was a great leader, man. He loved he would do anything for his guys. Um, I played with Russell Wilson that year. Just just a tremendous leader, and the list goes on. I could name 100 guys from my playing time. And the one common denominator with a lot of these guys is, they put in the effort. They're the ones that are leading by example, and they didn't always talk a whole lot. And when you lead with effort and you try to be somebody that's, as a quarterback, you lead the team. But when you're putting in all the extra effort, guys see that. They recognize that because you can't fake that. That's time. That's, your energy. And then when you do pipe up when it's needed, at a crucial point in that game or at halftime, whatever it may be, guys listen. But if you're constantly this rah guy, I mean, it loses its luster at some. So what I know is that you can lead with your actions, and people only listen. But when you're just putting in structured routine work, high energy, people see that. And then when you do actually pipe up, that's going to hold so much more weight because it's like, he's talking now. Let's listen to what he has to say because he's always in the work,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So I I kind of intertwined it in that question, but you started your own business. You want to talk a little bit about it, and then if you guys are watching on YouTube, we'll drop the link to it in the description here as well, so you guys can click on it and check them out. So, but yeah, talk a little bit about your business.
Yeah. So it's an exteriors business. We do residential and commercial property maintenance. So a lot of like stuff with windows, cleaning concrete, um, pressure washing in general, I would say. In the business itself, I just wanted to use skills I already had. So with firefighting, we're getting on roofs all the time, putting up ladders, dealing with small engines, nozzle pressures, all this stuff. So it's all the same stuff with my business. I just thought I would take skills I had and, repurpose them into a business. And fortunately, there's been a demand for it both on the commercial side and the residential side. And that keeps me pretty busy during, anytime water can't breathe. And 6, 7 months out of the year, is my busy season, and then, now, obviously, with it being winter, we're recording this in December, um, I get to just hang out and try to hunt big bucks.
What was there something that initially inspired you to start the business?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
so
because you gotta put in a ton of hours at the firehouse, and then, you got 2 kids, like,
yeah, yep,
there
it's
had to have been something there to spark that.
uh, my wife and I, we knew we wanted her to stay home, and, knowing what I know with some of the skills that I have from firefighting as well as just what I know about business, I thought I could blend both of those and take a crack at trying to earn enough to keep her home. And fortunately, we accomplished that. And it's kind of cool how it all comes together. Being able to take things I learned at UW and things that I learned firefighting and bringing those together. And by the good grace of God, it's been for prosperous for us, and that's something that I'm very very thankful for.
What's the biggest challenge in entrepreneurship that you faced so far?
Managing time, I would say, because there's so much time you want to put into growing the business itself, but then you want to be present with your family and your kids, and then you want to continue to build your marriage, and then you still want to build upon yourself and your own ambitions. And um, you realize, I always heard there's only so few hours in a day, and you know, I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but now I know what that means.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that balance, that time management. Um, Fortunately, I really enjoy, um, like if I enjoy moving at 100 miles per hour with a lot of things and building different areas of my life. And when I'm not doing that, kind of like now, with it being slow season, it's nice, but, I get that itch, again,
Yeah.
to keep putting that effort in, and, um, so I just think managing that balance of things.
Do you approach your goals, both professional and personal, now kind of the same way you approach training and game planning for games during the week in college?
Yeah, 100%. I've always been able to, like, know what I want. I mean, I always knew what I wanted, so that is very helpful with having a vision. Because once you have a vision, you can reverse engineer it and take the adequate steps to achieve that vision. So for me, um, I want to have a successful business, for example. I know how to take the proper steps to at least give myself a shot.
Yeah.
And, if you fail, that's the other thing is with football or with any competitive sport I played, I have a lot of failures in them too. And I'm comfortable at failing. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people avoid is, whether that protection or they try to avoid failure. It's like, you got to put it in volume that it wouldn't be real not succeed. It's kind of how I
Yeah.
see things. And failure is more thing that happens along the way. People want success like this, but really, it's like this.
You're right. Right.
So, but yeah, I just think being able to be process oriented and just know that putting in, efforts daily, having routines daily, and being consistent with them inevitably will lead to whatever your version of success will be.
You s I mean, you said you have, a little bit of downtime now, some seasonality with the um, business there. Do you ever worry about, you've taking on too much and burning yourself out, or not really?
Certainly, yeah, yeah. You gotta. It's good to manage expectations, but it's also good to be a little unreasonable um, with what you want to accomplish. And for me, I got coals in the fire for what the next thing is, and I like the idea of hunting towards goals. You know what I mean? It gives me a duty and a purpose to achieve something, and it's just fun to do. Like, what else am I going to do with my time? And it's all different areas of your life. For me, it's family, it's marriage, it's kids, and then it's business and my own accomplishments that I want. So, um, and wherever you land is a fun story. You should write a story of your life. Make a good one.
Yeah, that was a personal question for me because, I worry about that all the time.
I think
Uh,
to have, you know what I mean? I think you should have a little bit of an unrealistic expectation of what you want to accomplish because, wherever you end up landing, that's gonna be successful. You know what I mean? Or it's gonna be something
yeah,
worthwhile.
yeah. So we'll transition to the fatherhood aspect here.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so has becoming a dad changer perspective on I'm assuming this is going to be yes, but how so on life compared to your playing days?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You see things differently because you're trying to understand how your message is received from the perspective lens of a child. You know, I have an idea of how my, 35-year-old mind would approach something, but then to water that down to an absorbable message for 7-year-old, or like an 8-month-old, hey, that's hot. Don't touch that, you know.
Yeah,
stuff like that. It's a little bit difficult, but that's kind of the idea, I guess.
Did fatherhood come with any surprises that kind of hit you by surprise?
Um, I think the thing that stands out the most is that children will not necessarily listen to what you say as much as what they see you do. And, I guess I suspected that. Maybe I heard that once or twice before, but um, it's so evident when you have kids. You know what I mean? They're going to just mimic. So if I've learned anything, it's mimicry. If you want your kid to be a good kid, it really does start with you. Um, if you want good manners in a kid, it starts with you, you know?
Yeah.
It's all those aimless little interactions, checking out at a grocery store and, acknowledging a cashier, looking them in the eye, please and thank you. It's like all the things we know, but we have a way of overlooking them or just bypassing them sometimes. And if I want my children to be that, it really does start with me showing them. And that's what they're gonna follow. As much as I say do, they're gonna do what they see.
How do you this one, I guess, is more specifically for your daughter. How do you teach resilience and confidence with without with like the sports environment that you were kind of raised in?
Yeah. Um with her, a lot of it just is about having an open conversation about, what are you feeling? What are you going through? That kind of thing. But then to actually build resiliency or confidence in her, we do a lot of like role play, honestly. And it's, if she has a reading at mass for school, we'll set up all these teddy bears and, read to the congregation. And we have a garage gym, and that's actually been really helpful with building confidence, just seeing her build herself. And she's 7, so we keep it fun. I mean, she's not training,
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
it's getting her in there and showing her that you can do a hard thing. And isn't that awesome when you accomplish a hard thing that previously you didn't think you could do? And that builds confidence, and just feeding that the best you can it goes a long way.
It's gonna be different for your 2 kids, but what's your favorite time to spend quality time with between the 2 kids?
Yeah. Oh man. Um, you know, at least during the summer, it's, those quality morning hours, I would say, when they're freshest, when they're rested the best and they're, all that kind of stuff.
Cuddly, yep,
There's a lot of precious moments, I think, when the kids stumble out and it's the morning and they just want to cuddle up to you. That's awesome. And then each season brings something different. Summer, it's fun to go to the parks and do those daytime activities. And then, winter, it's the events of everything that a Wisconsin winter has to offer with sledding or ice skating and those things. So um just quality family time in general is you can never get enough of it.
It's funny, I always think about that now, but,
What are
like
yours? I wanna know what
but
yours.
but you always see, like, well, so a lot of my friends had kids before I did, and, they're, you know, loving posting all these milestones and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't see the significance of posting all that stuff, and now I'm doing it. I'm
Yeah.
like, "This is the coolest thing ever, dude."
Yeah, watch them grow up and hit a milestone, it really is. It's amazing, my son, he's 8 months, and just getting him to sit up on his own was such a thing, and then I come home from work and he's just sitting there and now he's crawling all over the house, and it's like watching your kid unhatch into this next version of himself it's an amazing thing. It's so cool.
But, yeah, uh I don't know. I got a couple. The mornings are pretty good when you can
Yeah.
wake them up in the morning and they just kind of sit there and chill with you for a little bit. It's always great walking in the door and they smile and come running at you. There's no better feeling than that.
Yeah.
My buddy got, I don't even know what they're called, like plush mellow pillows or something like that. But it's a Bucky Badger one. So I'll bounce it in front of him and say Bucky, 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 and he like tackles it. He like run and tackle it, and then he starts laughing. So I mean, there's just little things where it's kind of fun, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's the best, man. It is. It's awesome.
But so we'll tie it into you and your daughter and Bucky. There's a picture of you and your daughter. I think it's at Camp Randall,
Yep.
and then a picture of you and some teammates. I think Borland's in it.
Yeah.
Uh, so was that for a game?
Yeah, so that was a spring track meet. So what it was, there was a track meet originally by my mom and dad's house in Appleton. We lived by the high.
Okay,
She heard the announcers and all this stuff. What is that? What is that? So we just went over there and we checked it out, and she was all about it. And so then I'm like, all right, there's something to it. We got her a baton, and we're doing handoffs on the sidewalk.
nice.
And then I said, hey, Lucy, this is something that they do at Wisconsin. And so she was all excited about that. So obviously a day in Madison, there's plenty you can do just with going to the zoo and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. So get a day out of it. And we went to this, I think it was a Big Ten invite. So she went to go see these track athletes, which, I want her to see, these female athletes competing in, a pretty cool environment. And
yeah.
then, the cherry on top with all of this was she was able to meet, Bucky Badger was there. So getting a picture with Bucky was, and after the meet, we went to Camp Randall, and I didn't really know what to expect. It was just a random like Thursday or Friday, I think. And but anyways, it was open, and we're able to sneak into the McLean a little bit. Some track athletes helped us get in. Uh, I'm like, I'm on the wall over here, and they're like, all right, oh yeah, I recognize you now. So, uh, but that was the first time Lucy had ever seen that. So I think it was kind of a cool moment just for her to see, this big stadium and like dad's on the wall, and it's something, whatever it is, it's something in her mind. Kind of cool to see.
So what I'm hearing is future Kakana track star in the making.
Yeah, right. We'll see, wherever her talent takes.
uh, have you guys taken her back? Have you guys taken for a football game?
No, we
Or do you get back for
want
football
to.
games much?
What's that?
Do you get back for football games much?
It's been hard this year. I try to make one
Yeah,
game a year. My son was born in March, and then through the football season, it was just between business and him. It's hard to just get away for a whole day and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. So I'm thinking next year we'll be primed up to go. I'm hoping the team's a little more competitive so that we can have. But nonetheless, it'll be fun to go to the stadium. Show her the atmosphere. Might have to put
Yeah.
ear on for a couple of chants from the students. You know what I mean? But honestly, I think she's at an age where it's something that she can absorb and really see it for what it is. And I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's got to be a surreal moment for you. But I always like asking guys this: the first time you went back after playing, what did that feel like?
Oh, it felt different. It did, because it's like, you know, you always used to be the reason people had tickets to the game, and now you're getting a ticket to the game.
Yeah,
And um, it was cool to see because the boys were winning. It was, the first game back was Melvin's 400-yard game.
oh really?
Yeah, no, that was the first game back, and um, it's an awesome game, and like I couldn't have been more proud for Melvin because my perspective for that game was, I was next to him for all of these sprints. I was next to him when we trained and we did all this film. And, when you sweat next to a guy like that and you go through, great wins and some great losses, and then you see him do that, you can't help but smile and be proud. So, I mean, talk about an awesome game to be at and see that. And then, um, just from the general perspective, it was different, but I was a happy Badger. I was a happy,
Yeah.
proud Badger along. So,
Yeah. Not too many of those games this year.
not a lot, man.
I did get lucky though. I normally only go to one game. I went to two games. I went to Iowa, which was abysmal, and then ended up going to Illinois too. So
Yeah, yeah.
saw it
That,
up.
that game. I mean, I thought Bielema was going to come to town and get a victory, but
I thought so too.
he,
Because James White's on that coaching staff too, isn't he?
yeah, he not anymore. He just took a head coaching job at a local high school.
Okay, that's why I saw that. Yeah.
But he was on the staff.
So, this has been awesome. I always ask final two questions here. I don't want to hold you longer.
No,
I
you're good.
think we set it for till 10 here, but
No.
so if you could, if your kids come across this interview when they come of age somehow, what is one thing that you hope they take away from it?
I bet they will know what I'll say. It's because we say it every night, and it's keep your head humble and keep your heart hustling. Um, I hope we continue to say that message in there.
I like that. I'm gonna
That's,
steal that. No.
Wow, you can make it. Heard it here first, but yeah, we say that every night. I think it's a pretty good way of approaching things, and I hope that they can really take that one to heart.
Yeah, I like that. And then, of course, the last question, since we are Wisconsin podcast, how do you think? I'm gonna rephrase it. What do you think they need to do in the off season here to be more competitive next year?
We need to get back to what our DNA is, and you look at the team now. They post a lot of just recruiting nonsense that if you're winning 10, 11, 12 games, you can do that, but not when you're not what they are. So, I really think I believe in this. It starts in the weight room. When you're posting half squats, 3/4 squats, not even going on all the way, and you're saying that we're ready for the next season. It's like these are attention to details that lead to 4-win seasons.
Yeah,
I would also say just from a game plan standpoint, you need to pay attention to detail and you need to get back to what works. We all know what works. You build a fence around the state, you get kids, you coach them up, you get under recruited kids, you make them into 4 and 5 stars. You just don't get them that way out of the box. And you run the ball. You go and get the best running backs in the country and you just do what we've always done and it wins. It works and you get wins. That's what we
yeah.
need to do. It's not hard.
I'm very glad that you said that about social media because I don't know if it was Anthony Davis or the Chase Hammond interview. I said the exact same thing where it was like they're doing too much on social media and like I feel like they just need to shut it off and just go back to the basics. Like,
Yeah. Like, it's a
it's
recruiting thing. I get that it's
yeah,
the day and age we're in. I get those things, but also you have to be at a level where you can be that kind of hype. And
right,
you're you're not. Like it's just black and white, man. Like if you're not gonna win games, you can't be you rah rah on social media and act like you're a 10-win plus team.
right.
Or
Well, I mean, look how Kurt Signetti did it in 2 years, right? Like it's just hard nosed football. Like it's none of that cutesy crap.
yeah, and that's a cool case, man. Like Indiana, 150 years, they haven't really been a winning program, and then this guy comes in and just coaches hard, and
Yeah.
now they're the best team in the country. So It can be done in this, and
So there's hope for us.
I agree. We can right the ship. We can right the ship. Joe Thomas had a good take on it. Uh,
Yes, I listened to that.
did you listen to that? I think that
Yeah,
is the best take on the state of the program at the
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And actually, he kind of he said the same thing. My uncle coached Travis Frederick, so he's
Okay.
good friends with Travis Frederick still. But he said the same thing. He's like, dude, you gotta recruit offensive linemen in Wisconsin. We are losing those guys. Like,
It's a simple blueprint. Honestly, it's just a matter of doing. And I think eventually we're gonna get back to that. But until
yeah,
then, the more we neglect that, the more of what we're gonna see the last 3 seasons. So
yeah.
it's kind of where
There
we're at.
was there were some bright spots. There were some bright spots. So stuff to
Yeah.
build on.
Yeah. We
But
shall see.
yeah, we shall see. All right, Zoo, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story, the lessons, the perspective, the real stuff that people don't always get to hear past the games. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Drop a comment letting us know who you think we should have on next. As always, on Wisconsin. Thanks, Zoo.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it.